Welcome to Solo Olm Advanced Tactics. In this video, Rixie and I will present current meta techniques for 4-1, Mage Running, and 5-tick head phase that we have selected based on how optimal and practical they might be. This guide is not necessarily a guide for individuals to learn 4-1, but more so for those who already understand basic 4-1 to improve and optimize their 4-1. While we will go over basic 4-1 concepts, in this guide we will leave resources in the description that we would feel are better suited to teach someone who is just learning 4-1. Now we will move into the phase start portion of our guide. Now, there are multiple phase starts that you can possibly use. We are just going to show ones that are probably most likely preferred by individuals trying to improve their Olm. Here's the standard mage start that you'd likely use for P1. Now, the amount of switches that you do isn't necessarily important, but it does make a small amount of difference. The main thing that you don't want to miss is your piety. You'll also want to prioritize your melee accuracy switches over your max hit switches. Here's a clip of a proper mage start that is used on any phase past P1. These are different from P1 starts because P1 Olm starts on a different tick than the other phases. To set this up instantly, you'll have to attack the hand one tick behind it while staying in cycle, as Rixie does here. Here is what we would recommend should you miss your mage hit after your hammer doing the mage start. After your spec, you'll be one tick ahead of Olm, so you'll have to lose a tick to get onto the mage cycle. This will allow you to avoid one extra hit of damage. This is what you could do should you miss your first hammer in the mage start. Now, it's worth noting, should you miss your first mage hit, you will likely end up tanking a hit when you do your first hammer. There are other ways to avoid tanking hits, but we're only going to focus on the ones that have minimal tick loss. For any start that we haven't listed a clip for, we would recommend that you ignore the fact that you splashed and did the start as you normally would. Here's a simple way to set up 4-1 on P3 when you have two hammers. You simply just hammer twice and then run head and it's set. Now, doing this specific start will require you to tank a hit. In the mage running portion of the guide, we will show you how to mage on tick and one tick behind. Also, we will show you how to manage your run energy properly for both of those methods, as well as tanking during flame phase. Here we are maging on the same tick as Olm, but we splash from the melee side, so the head centers. Tanking the hit on this specific tile allows us to null the flame wall. And here is how you manage your run energy. This is a method called tick walking because you click once a tick. When tanking that hit on flame phase, you can also set your trident to long range and then set it back to manage a little bit more run energy. This is how you mage one tick behind. You can also use the tile one past the ring, but this would manage less run energy. So this is the method that we recommend for managing the most amount of run energy while maging one tick behind. Here is a simple way to null the flame wall when maging one tick behind. To do this, you must always click back on that one mage hit near the head, and this allows you to make the timing. And this would be how to manage the most run energy when maging one tick behind and needing to null the flame wall. When getting acid while mage running, you can do something like this to avoid a good amount of damage. You can also use some of the farther tiles in the back to drag, but this is fairly simple and easy to use. Welcome to our 4-1 portion of the guide, where we will show run energy management, proper acid walks, proper flame wall dodges, and proper pathing to set these things up. We will also show and explain scenarios where it is more efficient to keep the head facing center rather than turning it right. When transitioning to the melee hand, you should turn the head at least once to lower the likelihood of running into the special bug. Which, if you want to learn more about the special bug, we will be leaving resources in the description that explains what it is and how to manipulate it. Here's an example of how you can deal with first throw lightning. Now when dealing with falling crystals, you could either move every tick, or you could dodge only on the ticks that the crystal is going to fall. The main thing to note is that you want to attack from the second row to avoid being hit by a crystal. Doing 4 to 1, you're skipping on the empty and you're skipping the special right. So here in this clip, you'll see I get 2 autos while the head is facing center. I just skip the special right here, and thus 4 to 1 is halfway through the cycle. And after that, all you have to do is wait for the empty event, and there it is. The key to flame phase is nulling it whenever possible when trying to set up. The reason you'd want to null over just skipping the flame wall is because Olm can continue to use the flame wall even though it's being nulled. So here you're going to see me move to a tile that will always null it should the head be facing right. And now since I double auto, I need to do a 3 to 1, but I'm not going to turn the head right because I can null it. You don't actually need to turn the head right to do a 3 to 1, you just need to turn it center to skip the special. So here I noodled on the melee hand, so all I had to do is tank 1 auto and skip the next special right. Now I just wait for the empty and 4 to 1 is set just like that. The reason this works is because the ring finger column is outside of Olm's vision range, and since he needs all 3 columns visible, he cannot throw the flame wall on the index finger. The same concept applies when the head is facing right with this column. And because you attack 1 tick after Olm, that means you can null the flame wall and still get to the thumb in time. Here is how you can manage your run energy on west side flame phase. You can null the flame wall here, and then walk all the remaining tiles. And here's how you manage your run energy on east side while dodging the flame wall. Skipping the flame wall this way is most optimal because it will work when Olm is scuffed and unscuffed, an example of which will be linked in the description. You can also null the flame wall on east side as shown in this clip, but it's not necessarily recommended for P3 because it doesn't set up the same acid walk. It's also worth noting that when he's used a flame wall or burn, he has 24 ticks before he can use it again. When transitioning on this phase, you should utilize the pathing of standard acid walks, and this is to prep for a potential acid walk, so you don't end up ragging more than you have to. This movement between the index finger and the thumb is the movement I'm talking about that allows you to prep an acid walk. Here is an instance where that pathing ended up proving useful. As you can see here, I got a 3 to 1 acid walk, but because of my pathing, I ragged just the perfect amount. Here's your standard acid walk that you could use for P1 or P2. The basics of acid walking are effectively the same as tick walking. So for example, with Lance, you want to click 3 times on non-rag tiles and then click the hand. The most important things are that you maintain the cycle and you take as little damage as possible. So even if your acid walk isn't perfect, as long as you manage those 2 things, you'll be fine. This is the West Side Acid Walk developed by Osiris, and we selected this one because it was the most run efficient and the most practical. This is the part of the acid walk that typically differs from the other acid walks that you'll do on P1 and P2, and that's because you have to click the previous tiles you were going to. This is the P3 East Side Acid Walk, and it allows you to set up for a Flame Wall dodge and Acid Walk at the same time, because if you do the west side, you won't be able to dodge, without either changing the Acid Walk significantly or ragging. The P3 Acid Walks will last longer than the other phases, which is why you'll see that you rag twice during these Acid Walks. The second rag really can't be avoided, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The clip that you see here would be the recommended way to start 4-0. It shows how to spec properly, and then start the melee portion. Afterwards, it shows the basic mechanics of 4-0. 4-0 puts you 1 tick behind for the melee portion and has you maging 1 tick behind. That's why you path 1 tile past the ring when you're maging. Afterwards, you switch into your melee gear and attack the hand. Now here's a clip of me being very tired and not being able to properly switch, but it ends up being a very good example for what you're supposed to do when things go wrong in 4-0 and you don't hit. So here I'm going to hit 0 on the hand and the head's going to center. I'm going to click to that mage tile and mage immediately, and that'll keep me from tanking a hit. Now for when you splash, splashing is slightly different because you have to go straight into the melee portion then back into the mage portion. And you have to do that until you stop splashing, as shown here. You'll end up using portions of this as you go to finish the hands. Now, it's important to note that when you do finish the hands, you have to be maging 1 tick behind. So say you transition to mage hand, if you are not maging 1 tick behind, you will be losing 3 ticks to get back on tick. This is how you kill the mage hand second without your first bow hit healing on the head. It's important to note the row that I'm killing the mage hand from here, and the row that I do my first T-bow hit from. The reason this works is because these tiles marked in red will make the T-bow have a 4 tick travel time, which allows you to deal damage on the correct tick to ult. And the reason you have to kill the mage hand from these blue tiles is the distance it takes to get to these red tiles. In this clip, take note of the fact that Olm's HP stays at 800 even though there isn't a hit splat that's purple. This is because of the trident travel time and him not pulling back for the T-bow travel time. So him attacking the second his weapon was off cooldown made it heal. In this clip I'm killing the melee hand second, and that allows you to attack the second your weapon is off cooldown and never risking healing the head. This does unfortunately allow you to potentially give events to Olm to where he could heal the hand, but it's a calculated risk that you can take. This will also put you right on the 5 tick T-bow cycle, which is very convenient for insta setting up the cycle. As you'll notice, I'm attacking 1 tick before Olm on one side and 1 tick after Olm on the other side. These are the easiest spots to fit in the cycle. Now should you get Acid Walk during head phase, you would do it very similarly to how you would do melee hand, tick walking 4 times instead of 3 though, because your T-bow is 5 tick, but you also want to get to where you need to be, so you're going to want to try and keep your pathing as much as you can, but ideally you just want to take as little damage as possible. You can also use the tiles in the back of the room to drag, but it doesn't allow you to really dodge crystals easily, so we'll put a link to that in the description. If you'd like to check that out, you can. Now these aren't really techniques, but it's more just general advice to help you improve your ability at chambers. You want to make sure you're brewing on 15s as much as you can, but do not miss the timer. Since your buff refreshes every 15 seconds, you want to brew in a way that you're going to do as minimal amount of brew down hits as possible. And should you need to stall for spec at P3, you should do 16 mage hits before speccing to skip the healing. You also want to prioritize your prayers over your switches, and lastly, you want to be looking at Olm a lot more than your inventory. Thanks for watching and good luck.